In the USA, your odds of winning the Powerball lottery jackpot is around 1 in 292.2 million. If you spent 80 years buying the Mega Millions lottery twice a week, you'd still be more likely to get struck by lightning than go home with some money. You're also statistically more likely to date a supermodel, win an Oscar, have identical quadruplets, become an Olympic athlete, get eaten by a shark, and even become a saint in the Catholic Church. And thank God that's the case, because sometimes winning the lottery is less like a blessing and more like a truly horrific curse. Financial ruin, drug addiction, social isolation, and even being murdered by someone close to you are suddenly in the cards. Don't believe us? Here are some horrifying stories of people who had their lives ruined by hitting the jackpot, which we'll use to go a little deeper into why the lottery might lead you from riches to rags. Let's begin with the tragic tale of a man whose name was as awesome as his luck was terrible. Florida lottery winner Abraham Shakespeare. Mr. Shakespeare netted a $30 million win in 2006, a life-changing amount of money, in the worst way possible. He was a complicated man. Before his sudden influx of wealth, he was an assistant truck driver who lived with his mother, had a criminal history, and could barely read and write. After getting rich overnight, Shakespeare moved to a fancy gated community and bought nice cars and a Rolex, as many of us would if we became multimillionaires overnight. Shakespeare was notoriously generous with his money, something that a con woman named Doris D.D. Moore was eager to take advantage of. She approached him under the pretense that she wanted to write a book about his life, but she actually had much more sinister intentions. Through a business she started with Shakespeare, Abraham Shakespeare LLC, she siphoned off more than $1 million of the man's winnings, but it didn't stop there. In 2009, Shakespeare was reported missing by his family, and in 2010 his body would be discovered, buried behind the house. As you probably have guessed by this point, he'd been murdered, and the prime suspect in this murder was his toxic business partner, Doris D.D. Moore. After a lengthy trial, Dee was eventually convicted of Shakespeare's murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Shakespeare's brother, Robert Brown, was quoted as saying, "I'd have been better off broke. He said that to me all the time." Shakespeare had no idea how right he was. Even though Shakespeare was murdered, at least some justice was able to be served in the end. The same cannot be said for the mysterious lottery-related death of Chicago's Uruj Khan, who won $425,000. However, he'd never actually lived to see the money, as in the process of collecting it, Khan mysteriously dropped dead. A truly random tragedy. Perhaps the 46-year-old's heart simply gave out from excitement of winning life-changing money. It clearly meant a lot to him. As he himself said, "Winning the lottery means everything to me." However, after his loved ones came forward and asked for the Cook County medical examiner Stephen Sina to reopen the case, this was the point where they discovered that the cause of Khan's death wasn't so natural. He died after ingesting a fatal dose of cyanide, only made worse by Khan's dangerously clogged arteries. However, because the autopsy was made 6 months after Khan's death, and because, in accordance with Muslim traditions, he hadn't been embalmed, his body was in too deep a state of decomposition to learn any more about how Khan had ingested the cyanide. It's unlikely we'll ever know, but one thing seems clear. The fact that Khan would somehow ingest a fatal quantity of cyanide just after he won the lottery definitely seems too perfect to be a coincidence. Either way, winning the lottery certainly didn't improve Uruj Khan's life. While both those stories are unquestionably tragic, the next one is downright disturbing. We're talking about the fate that befell 20-year-old forklift operator Gregory Birch Jr. when he won the $400,000 jackpot in 2015, the first domino in a brief and upsetting series of events that would end Birch Jr.'s life. Upon hearing about Gregory's windfall, a gang of 7 men led by a gang member named Debrentes Overstreet, a rival name to Abraham Shakespeare, decided that they wanted some of that money, even if it meant using lethal force. 2 months after the win, without warning, they shot through the door of Gregory's Georgia home and stormed in, guns blazing. As Gregory was holding his 2-year-old child, his girlfriend, Jasmine Hendricks, was also in the room during the holdup. Gregory pleaded for the life of his girlfriend and child, begging, "Don't do it, bro. Don't do it in front of my kids. Please don't do it in front of my kids and old lady. I'll give you my bank card." But this wasn't enough. He tried to take off and give his pants to the robbers when he couldn't find his wallet, but they shot him in both legs in their frustration before fleeing. This would be bad enough, but they came back soon after and finished the job, murdering Gregory in front of his girlfriend and infant child. The men were caught and convicted, but this would be little comfort to Jasmine and the child, who lost a partner and a father, all because they'd come into some money that local criminals were eager to steal. After this tragic event, the Georgia Lottery started letting its winners choose to remain anonymous. If only they'd provided this option sooner, Gregory might still be with us. Next, we have one of the most infamous unlucky lottery winners of all time, Andrew Jack Whitaker. This West Virginia man was the president of Diversified Enterprises Construction and was hardly a pauper. He already had a net worth of around $17 million. However, this was small potatoes compared to the epic win he was about to get on the Powerball, an utterly insane $314.9 million. It was the largest amount of money ever won on an American lottery ticket, so naturally, it would have some legendary lore attached to it too. Initially, things seemed to be going well. He gave generously to charity, even creating his own charitable foundation. He gave a large sum of money to the owner of the convenience store where he bought the winning ticket. He even drove around his neighborhood throwing handfuls of cash out the window for anyone who happened to be walking by. Life was good, but that goodness wouldn't last for long. $500,000 were robbed from Jack's car while he was visiting a strip club. This would be the only successful attempt of 3 different incidents where greedy strangers conspired to rob Jack of his winnings. But the tragedy of this pales in comparison to the death of Jack's beloved granddaughter, 17-year-old Brandy Bragg, who died of a drug overdose under mysterious circumstances. Many years later, Jack's daughter and Brandy's mother, Ginger Whitaker Bragg, was found dead in her West Virginia home under tragic circumstances. Jack really just couldn't win. On top of all these personal struggles, the lottery winnings also brought him a myriad of legal troubles. Caesars Atlantic City Casino even sued him for bouncing $1.5 million worth of checks to cover gambling losses, which led to a longer legal dispute between him and the casino. He also dealt with a DUI in 2003 and even had his house burned down in 2016. The seemingly endless unlucky streak of Jack Whitaker would come to a close in June of 2020 when he passed away after suffering from a long illness. It's one of the few misfortunes that seem to have nothing to do with his lottery winnings. Okay, let's take a brief break from this parade of human misery. Don't worry, we'll get to more later. There is sadly no shortage of these stories. Let's take a deeper look now at our central question: why is winning the lottery the worst thing that can happen to you? As much as people, and generally annoying people who are comfortably wealthy already, will tell you that money can't buy happiness, there are plenty of problems in our lives that feel like they could be solved overnight by suddenly becoming a multi-millionaire or even a billionaire. We never need to worry about food or shelter. We could pay off any outstanding bills, debts, or student loans, and we could leave that rat race and relax, using our newfound mega bucks to live out our dreams and donate to causes and charities we believe in. You could probably even afford YouTube Premium. So what's the problem here? Why does life-changing money so often seem to change people's lives for the worse? Of course, there are plenty of people who would win the lottery and go on to live happy, successful lives. We literally just explained all the anxiety-inducing problems that just seem to vanish when lottery winners spend their winnings responsibly. You may have heard the statistic that 70% of lottery winners go bankrupt within 5 years of their big win. But this is actually a piece of commonly repeated misinformation based on a 2001 symposium organized by the National Endowment on Financial Education. A data point you probably haven't heard of is the results of a 2020 study conducted in collaboration between Stockholm University, Stockholm School of Economics, and New York University that had a sample of 3,000 Swedish lottery winners, surveying their lives from 5 to 22 years after the big win. The result? The researchers found that the winners had sustained increases in overall life satisfaction. But why? Why do we lust over horror stories of lottery wins gone bad when the stories of lottery winnings drastically improving people's lives seem to go unnoticed? Simply put, it's likely linked to how we started the video. Winning the lottery is astronomically unlikely. Despite these odds, 181 million people play the Powerball every year, despite the fact that so many of these people statistically will never ever win. And we've seen the number of players rising, as it seems like the economy is designed to do less and less for the average person. For many, it seems like the lottery is the only way to escape the horrors of poverty and debt. But again, most people simply will not get a lottery win. This makes it a more pleasing narrative to believe that the winners are worse off than the losers, that really we're the lucky ones for not winning. It's just less painful than thinking that the ladder out of struggle can be accessed by so few. But why do some of those few spin out into tragedy, even if statistically the people whose lives are destroyed are actually in the minority? Of course, the lottery can change how others see you and, even worse, how they behave toward you. Some lottery winners have reported distant relatives they haven't talked to in years, or ones they haven't talked to at all, like their fourth cousin 3 times removed, Count Olaf, trying to get a piece of their new fortune. And how could you turn down a family member? They're flesh and blood after all. But it won't stop there, of course. Been meaning to get in contact with some old friends? Don't worry. After your big lottery win, they might try to contact you again. And of course, they'll be very interested in getting closely acquainted with you and might even tell you about some of their money troubles over a few drinks. And you want to be a good friend, don't you? You likely will feel obligated to pay off those debts just to be a considerate pal. Oh, did you think it would stop there? We're sorry to disappoint you, because when the news of your next big win went public, stockbrokers and investing consultants may also get in touch, telling you about brilliant projects and miracle stocks that just so happen to be once-in-a-lifetime investment opportunities, ready to be given cash injection by a newly minted baller like you. They'll tell you that these opportunities will double, triple your current fortune, though it may leave you a lot worse off than you started. The same can be said for charities and philanthropic opportunities. We don't want you to think we're being cold-hearted here. It's good to give to charities if you can afford it and if those charities are ethical. But when you win the lottery, representatives of various charities may become travel agents who specialize in sending you on a guilt trip. Who knows how much of your lucky winnings you'll give away just to take the weight off your heart. In an interview, the 2006 Missouri lottery winner Sandra Hayes once said, "I had to endure the greed and the need people have trying to get you to release your money to them. That caused a lot of emotional pain. There are people who you've loved deep down, and they're turning to vampires, trying to suck the life out of me. Though it's better to have the life sucked out of you in a purely metaphorical sense than to have it snuffed out of you by the people who want to get their hands on your money. As we've sadly seen in a lot of our examples, there are just as many people who'd happily murder you if it meant getting a slice of your lottery won pie, or at the very least rob you blind without a second thought." Returning to Sandra Hayes from earlier, she was almost a victim of a con from a guilt-tripping friend who claimed she was about to lose her house due to being unable to pay 3 years of back taxes. Just before Sandra could help her friend out, she decided to do some due diligence and check public tax records related to her friend, finding out that all of her taxes had actually been paid in full. When Sandra confronted her friend about this, their relationship quickly broke down. As you've seen, this is still one of the more mild stories to come out of lottery misfortune. That being said, sometimes the call is coming from inside the house. The term sudden wealth syndrome is often applied to people who spin out after becoming unexpectedly rich overnight without having any pre-existing wealth management knowledge. We've all heard the stories of celebrities like Nicolas Cage splurging on castles and dinosaur bones, and when the average person becomes as well off as Nick Cage without needing to star in National Treasure first, there's a tendency to go even crazier with the metaphorical checkbook. You've seen it in the stories: luxury cars, mega mansions, and sadly lots and lots of drugs. That was the case for the unfortunately named Willie Hurt, who blew all of his 1989 $3.1 million jackpot on crack cocaine. It's the true meaning of the phrase "easy come, easy go." Money won rather than earned seems to lend itself to more frivolous spending, soon landing the winner in a deeper hole than they started in before the money ever found its way to their hands. Evelyn Adams was lucky enough to win the lottery twice, once in 1985 and 1986, and allegedly blew all $4.5 million of her winnings in casinos in Atlantic City. Canada's Gerald Muswagon got it even worse in 1998 when he won $10 million on the Super 7 jackpot and decided to party it all down the drain. According to Canada's Globe and Mail, he bought several new vehicles for himself and friends, purchased a house that turned into a nightly party pad, and often celebrated his new lifestyle with copious amounts of drugs and alcohol. In a single day, he bought 8 big-screen televisions for friends. His rampant partying and a series of bad investments in an unprofitable logging company soon resulted in his new fortune collapsing. After being forced into heavy labor just to make ends meet, he ended up taking his own life in 2005. It's a slightly more tragic version of the experience of the UK's Michael Carroll, a garbage man who ended up winning the equivalent of $15 million at only 19. He ended up blowing all this money on his insane number of vices: crack cocaine, parties, prostitutes, and luxury cars. That $15 million was turned into a big fat zero in a mere 5 years, and Michael worked in sanitation again. On the subject of impulse buying, one former winner said, "After we won the lottery, we bought an 8-bedroom, 7-bath, 10,000 square foot mansion because we could, and it sounded amazing. Well, now we're selling the 8-bedroom, 7-bath mansion because it's impractical for a family of 4. With that, let's turn to some of the horrifying stories of unlucky people whose lotteries condemned them to live lives of misery and woe. It takes a lot of work to maintain a healthy relationship. Love, compassion, honesty, respect, and communication are all essential for making it work. And few things test all of that better than a sudden windfall of $750,000 after a big lottery win. Thanks to the stories of winners like Sandra Hayes, it's easy to see why some people want to keep their winnings close to their chests. But sometimes this can create even bigger problems. Just ask Lynn Ann Poirier. Poirier and her partner Howard Browning were into the lottery to an unusual degree. The Florida couple bought tickets as often as they could, working under the verbal contract that if ever one of them won, they'd split the winnings in half, fair and square. But that's an easy deal to make when you haven't actually won yet. When Poirier made off well on the Florida Lottery's Firecracker Millionaire raffle, she disappeared for a month with the full $750,000, to the disappointment and horror of Howard. What followed 6 months later was a heated legal battle between Lynn and Howard, litigating in the Florida Trial Court, the Florida 5th District Court of Appeal, and even the Florida Supreme Court. The meat of the argument was based on whether or not Lynn needed to honor a verbal contract, and in the end, the Florida Supreme Court ruled that she did. It was a win for Howard, but that win didn't leave him much better off. Lynn Ann Poirier claimed that she'd already spent the money and declared bankruptcy, which Howard contested. The lottery winnings brought this couple nothing but strife. Lottery winnings can tear apart domestic partners, but surely they can't break the unstoppable bond between brothers, right? Nope, wrong. Just to get in a time machine and ask William "Bud" Post, who won over $16 million in the Pennsylvania lottery back in 1988. Within a year of his big win, it wasn't just all gone, he was $1 million in debt. A third of his winnings were sued out of him by an ex-girlfriend, and the majority of the rest was sunken into an unsuccessful family business. But if this wasn't bad enough for Bud, his own brother was arrested for allegedly hiring a hitman to kill him so he could get a portion of the money. Bud would also later end up in jail for firing a gun over the head of a bill collector, hoping to right some of Bud's many debts. He said of the whole horrible experience, "I wish it never happened. It was totally a nightmare. I was much happier when I was broke." There's one thing worse than a family member attempting to murder you for your lottery winnings: a family member succeeding in murdering you for your lottery winnings, as was the case for E.B. Roncaioli of Ontario back in 1991. E.B. won $5 million on a lottery draw and ended up giving $2 million of those winnings to a secret child that she'd had with someone else. Her jealous husband, Joseph Roncaioli, poisoned her to death with painkillers when he found out about the money. Just another casualty of the lottery. Want to know how to avoid becoming another one of those horror stories if you hit the lotto jackpot? Check out how to actually spend your lottery winnings, or watch this video instead.